So apparently I forgot a question. So when I did the one the other day about my favorite promo, I actually forgot question number two, or topic number two, which is favorite title belt. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Favorite title belt. Here we go. We can sit here and talk about the Undisputed Championship, the Smoking Skull Championship for Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Brahma Bull looking one for The Rock. We can talk about the WWE or WWF, whatever, Intercontinental Championship, which has pretty much been the same design for like decades. We can sit here and talk about a lot of stuff. The U.S. Championship, back when like Luger and U.S. Michael P.S. Hayes had it. We can talk about the TV title that Sting, Muta, Rotundo, Arn Anderson had. I think Bobby Eaton even held it too. What other ones are there? The WWF Tag Team Championships. I'm not naming the ones I really, really like right now. I'm kind of doing like the ones to think about that have been around for a while or even a short period of time. There's a lot of titles. Ones I really, really don't like. I like the uniformity because when you have a company that's as big as WWE is, you're going to need some kind of uniformity so that way people know, oh, that's the WWE belt for this. That's the one for that. Because, you know, the logo is what it is and everyone knows what the logo is. Everyone knows WWE, how that logo looks. So the Universal title, the Raw Women's Championship, the SmackDown Women's Championship, the tag team belts, I don't like those. I don't like any of those at all. Like I said, the IC belt is cool. It's been around for 30, 40 years, the same design. I don't think they've changed it at all. I think since, probably 86, 87, somewhere in there, maybe 85. So it's been around for a long, long time. So it's pretty cool. I like the consistency of it. But there's some other ones out there. The AWA World Championship belt, who cares? Actually, no, that one was actually pretty cool. I actually like that one. It reminds me of a couple of the ones on this list. I also used to like the current version of the WWE US Championship. I think it's nice. They had a circular one some years back. I think it was the John Cena one, and it didn't look very good. It looked kind of stupid. And I also like the Undisputed Championship WWE had. But when it comes down to my top 5 favorite belts, I broke it down pretty quickly. I knew what 2 or 3 of my top 5 would be, and then after that, I had to kind of think about it for a couple minutes, but I figured it out pretty quickly. I will say real quick, the Cruiserweight Championship for 205 Live, I never liked the old NXT belts either. I think the first NXT belt looked better than the second one, and I think they switched it up because Paige had done some nasty stuff to the old one, at least the Divas one, or the Women's Championship in NXT. So I get changing it up because you just don't. People aren't going to want to touch that shit anymore. That's just gross, man. Oh, so gross. Anyway, number 5, the NXT UK Championship, which had the history that the other 4 belts have on this list, then, the UK Championship has only been around for less than a year. It's pretty nice, I'm not gonna lie, but still it's just it's only been around for a year, but the design is really nice, and I think if it had been around a little bit longer, I'd probably have it higher ranked. Pardon my burp. But I had to look at the UK women's version of it as well, and it looks exactly the same, only the UK women's NXT UK Women's Championship belt has a white strap, and it's going to be a little bit smaller because the women are obviously smaller than the guys. I believe Toni Storm is still currently NXT UK Women's Champion, and the NXT UK Men's Champion is Walter, also known as Walter. But anyway, the way you look at this belt, and I got to pull this up and find a really good, here we go. You got the UK on a ribbon kind of arching underneath a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 10 to 15 looking diamonds, and then 3 little ruby studs kind of next to that. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of those ruby studs, and you have one in the center on the bottom. So you got about 15, about 60 cubic zirconia, fake diamond looking things kind of creating this border with those little ruby studs as well. And so you have the UK ribbon on the top, and underneath you have the NXT logo in the middle on like a red background, and you have the WWE logo in the middle of the X, which I actually just noticed for the first time looking at this belt very intently. And then you have another ribbon with the women's underneath that, and then underneath that in big bold letters is the word champion in all caps. There's no undercase letters here, it's all capital letters. And the thing I really find cool about this, and I probably need to look this up and see why they have it this way, is to the left, if you're looking at the belt straight on, to the left of the NXT WWE logo is a lion. On the right, you have, looks like a horse. And in between them, right above the NXT logo on that red background, right above that on the black background, it looks like a chess piece, maybe the Queen, which would make sense because Queen of England, there's probably a lot of monarchies and things like that still out there. Not sure how that all rolls out. But this lion on this belt has a scroll in its hand. And actually, I need to look this up real quick and see what the significance is, because I'm sure that's pretty important. Nothing like a little bit of a Google search, and I'm on Wikipedia, and I'm going to use this as my source. So the lion and the unicorn, it's actually a unicorn, not a horse, my bad. It says they're symbols of the United Kingdom. They are properly speaking heraldic, I hope I said that right, supporters appearing in the full royal coat of arms of the UK. The lion stands for England, and the unicorn stands for Scotland. The combination, therefore, dates back to 1603 and the accession of James I of England, who was, who was already James VI of Scotland. By extension, they have also been used on the arms of Hanover, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, okay, they're also in Canada as well. There's a nursery rhyme associated with it, which I'm not going to read. In popular culture, it says this rhyme was played upon by Lewis Carroll, who incorporated the lion and unicorn as characters in Through the Looking Glass, which is the Alice in Wonderland, if you remember that. That's the original. Here, the crown they are fighting for belongs to the White King, which they are on the white side as well, makes their rivalry all the more absurd. So it's just a big, long explanation of a political association in regard to the UK, which makes sense. I mean, of the U.S. Championship in WWE, you have the American flag or colors, the American flag colors, kind of embedded in the belt. So it makes sense to kind of have that as it relates to the territory or country in which it represents. But to me, this belt looks really, really cool. The women's version, the men's version doesn't matter because it's the same thing. It's just a matter of how many, the word women's really in that ribbon. It looks like the only difference. Maybe a few of the little fake cubic zirconia diamond things, but looks pretty similar. It's just a matter of size. This image of this belt is beautiful, I tell you that. Anyway, number 2. You're probably thinking, how could he go back this far? I think the way it looks is because of the globe on it. I think the history of it for sure, part of why I like it more. But really, I think it's just the globe on it stands out, and it really kind of sets it off apart from maybe some other tag team championship belts. And a close, maybe honorable mention as far as tag team championship belts would be the WWF tag team championship belts from the 80s and 90s all the way into, I think, the 2000s at some point. Like, those are the ones I think about. The Bulldogs, the Hart Foundation, Demolition, Strike Force, the Road Warriors when they were LOD. I think the Nasty Boys had it. Like, a lot of teams had these belts. Edge and Christian, Hardys, Dudleys. So, if you were a pretty serious tag team in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, or maybe even mid-2000s, when they finally switched it over, you had these belts. And you were pretty important to the culture of WWE. But anyway, so moving on, my number 4 here is the NWA World Tag Team Championship belts. A fairly simple design, kind of hard to see because, it wasn't that sophisticated as far as how they designed it. It's distinct as far as, like, there's no other belt that really looks like it, while it's similar to the WWF Tag Team Championship ones. I think these are older. And there's, it stands out. So what NWA, WCW, whatever used to do back in the day is they used to incorporate, I think other companies did this too, they would incorporate wrestlers wrestling on the belt. So you would have, one wrestler having another wrestler in a hold on one side of the belt, and the same thing, in a different hold or whatever on the other side of the belt, maybe a headlock or a leg lock or a suplex or body slam or, something like that, belly to belly, belly to back. Some to obviously signify the wrestling here. So to describe the belt, you got the NWA, and the color scheme should have been worked on better, but it was the 80s, so you get what you get. But the color scheme is pretty much predominantly gold. There's some black, and then the blue is just the globe, in which has looks like all the continents. That's very good. Glad they didn't exclude Antarctica, because that's kind of important, because there's 7 continents. Anyway, so they have the NWA. I don't want to say logo, but just the letters NWA, but the W is a little higher up than the N and the A. And then underneath that is a ribbon, kind of like on the NXT Women and Men's UK belt, where it just says World. And then underneath that is the globe with the blue water, and it includes North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, and of course Antarctica, like I said, because I'm making sure that it's not just some design flaw. Even though we don't have wrestlers from Antarctica anywhere, as far as I know, which would actually kind of be cool. Chili McFreeze, that could be their name. Anyway, underneath that is the word tag team. On either side of tag team is a 5-pointed star. Underneath that is a black ribbon with the words Wrestling Champions, once again, all caps here, written there. And then some little kind of floral kind of design underneath that. And like I said before about the wrestlers on sides of the belt included, they have that in here too as well. They have wrestlers on near the side plates. There aren't replaceable side plates, at least not back then. But they definitely included the look of wrestlers, putting moves that looks like a headlock. It's kind of hard to see, but looks like a headlock there. And there is some kind of a wreath above the letters NWA. So there's some black incorporated on the ribbons and the gold in the letters. And I think they probably should have used black for the letters NWA and tag team, and maybe even on the wreath and on the floral design on the bottom, and maybe even on the wrestlers, because it's really kind of hard to see. Like, I'm looking really closely, and if I'm not paying attention to it, I'm not going to see it because it blends in, because it's the same exact color. So I really like this belt. Could have been better, I think. If I were to do this list again in probably 10, 20 years, NXT UK belt, I'm sure probably would be second or third. And then this belt would probably be off, and I'm sure we're going to see some other belts coming up in the near future. And we're going to take it from there. So anyway, number 3, the IWGP Championship. I used to think, since IWGP has its own, obviously, 4 letters, I actually thought it was a separate company than New Japan Pro Wrestling. And so I thought IWGP was another company, and anyone who talked about IWGP Championship, I did not reference it to be a part of New Japan, because I did not know what the hell I was talking about. But I eventually learned, obviously. Had to look up something real quick. IWGP stands for what I thought it stood for, International Wrestling Grand Prix. So looks really, really nice. Matter of fact, I think if I do this list again, like I said, in 5 or 10 years, the AWA Championship belt would take the place of the NWA World Tag Team belts, because oh my God, that belt looks nice too. Anyway, this IWGP, there's so much involved here. I can't even really explain it, but there's like jewels to kind of create like a circular border. And almost the belt itself almost looks like an octagon type. Like it has various sides to it and angles. So there's definitely some geometry and some very particular design that went into this. It was not just some like, oh yeah, here's just a 5-pointed star or whatever, and we're going to put some stuff on it. Like, this is very, very intricate. It's hard to see all the details because I don't have an up-close photo of it. But the jewels to kind of create the border are multicolored. And then there's like 4 jewels to kind of, maybe it looks like they kind of screw in to hold together the IWGP Heavyweight Champion logo. There's so much going on here. So it looks like there's about 8 or 9 kind of diamond studs above the word heavyweight. Heavyweight is on the plate itself, and it's all in caps here. Once again, no lowercase. Even the champion's name is in all caps, but it's a very small name. This is when Hiroshi Tanahashi had this belt. I can't tell if there's like, it looks like they have the 7 or maybe just 5 or 6 continents on their belt. In the background, I can see North America, South America, Africa, Europe, and Asia, but I don't see Australia. Could just be because the belt design, and I don't see any space for Antarctica because we don't have Chili McFreeze wrestling for us anywhere. Anyway, and then the letters IWGP are very prominent in the middle. Like I said, the word champion is underneath that. And then you have like another kind of interior border of some kind of diamond cubic zirconia type thing. And like I said, the nameplate for the wrestler underneath that looks like it's some kind of jewel bolted into the nameplate, but it's probably just a screw. It just happens to be silver. But the top of this belt looks really cool, and I bet it has like some kind of, I don't know, it has something. It looks like there's some animals, maybe like a tiger, some kind of cat, maybe a dragon. It's really hard to tell, but to me, I'm guessing that it probably has some major significance to the culture of Japan, and it's not just some simple design to just be like, oh yeah, it's just kind of cool. Like, I'm pretty sure it means something very, very important to the culture of Japan and Japanese wrestling as a whole. A lot of people have held this title. Kenny Omega. I think Hulk Hogan had this for a while. I think Kurt, Brock, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Okada. Who else has had this belt? Was it Juice Robinson or somebody? I forget. There's a lot of names. If I had to run down the names of people who've had this belt, matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and go to the Wikipedia page real quick. I'm not going to pause this. I'm going to look at Reigns. Here we go. Not Roman Reigns. Looks like overall, let me see, where are we at? Brock Lesnar had it in 2005. Angle had it in 2007. Nakamura had it in 2008. So there's a lot of people who've held this championship belt. Here we go. Here's some Reigns here. Let me see here. So Okada's the current champion. Oh, Jay White was the one who held it before him. Tanahashi had it before that. Omega, Okada again. Naito had it in 2016 when he beat Okada. AJ Styles had it. Tanahashi had it. Like I said before, Satoshi Kojima. I don't think I'm saying that right, but if I am, good for me. Tanahashi's had it several times, as well as Nakamura, so I'm sure they've got some great feuds to find on the internet out there. Bob Sapp had this. That's really interesting because he was not a very good professional boxer or whatever he was trying to be. Was not very good, but yeah, Lesnar had this in 2005. It was a 3-way match involving Masahiro Chono and Kazuyuki Fujita. Butchered that. Some other names on here that you might recognize. Ken Norton. I love the Cowboys. Scott Norton had it in 2001. The Great Muta, also Kaiji Moto, known as Kaiji Moto. He had it in 99 the last time he had it. Tenryu, he had it in 99 as well. He looks like he beat Muta later in that year. Tatsumi Fujinami, he had it in 94. Vader had it. I thought I said Hogan had it. I guess I was wrong. I think Hogan won a tournament once, but it wasn't for this championship. And then Antonio Inoki had it in 87. I think this was actually his company, if I'm not mistaken. If I am mistaken, then so be it, but it is what it is. But it is a very, very good-looking belt, and I am totally in awe of the design here, and I hope that whoever made this belt makes other belts as well. The Intercontinental Championship belt that they have as well, pretty nice as well. They pretty much just change. Actually, no, there's more to it that's actually changed. It's once again a very intricate design, but I'm not going to sit here and describe it, but it is a very, very nice looking belt. And like I said, whoever made that belt and made the IWGP Heavyweight Championship belt, I hope they make more belts because they did a great, great job. Number 2, the WWF Winged Eagle is what they call it. They call it the Winged Eagle belt because there is a winged eagle on it. Duh. Oh, good. I got a great version of this. And notice I'm not talking about side plates at all, because those are now interchangeable with a wrestler's logo, which is great to have. If you're a wrestler, you got to have a logo, because how else are you going to market yourself and sell shirts and headbands and wristbands and socks and all that kind of crap, and t-shirts. Did I already say t-shirts? Got to sell t-shirts. Everyone's wearing t-shirts. Anyway, this winged eagle Hulk Hogan belt, it looks different than the one from 87. When I say 87, I think I actually mean more like 86, WrestleMania 1 and 2. It was more like oval-ish with a couple ribbons going across it with a kind of a more of an ovalish looking globe in the middle. This one is much more circular. You've seen Hogan have this one. Savage had this. Ultimate Warrior had it. Slaughter, Andre, when he stole it from Hogan, and DiBiase had it as well. And you had, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold. Like, a lot of guys had this belt. This belt lasted, I think, until 2002. And I think, like I said, Austin had it. The Rock had it. Undertaker, Kane had this. Mankind had it. So it's just so many people who've had this championship belt. The design for it is very specific. I'll get into the eagle part in a second. But it's very specific, and it looks like, once again, like an old school belt, kind of like the NWA World Tag Team Championship belts, where I talk about the wrestlers and the blue and the black and all that stuff. It's just, it's solid. It's solid. I think it's one of people's favorite belts that they look at, that they would want, like, a copy of that or a version of that in their collector's items. But anyway, so here we go. You got a little 3-pronged thing up at the top with a WWF logo right underneath that. Obviously, we don't do WWF anymore because the F stands for Federation, for World Wildlife Federation. Can't have two WWFs in the same country. Sorry, I guess, whatever. Anyway, it's a circular looking shape where you have the word world, that's a tongue twister, in gold on a black background. Not the banners that you would see on the other belts, but it's its own little kind of standard banner without much of a design to it, just kind of a shape to hold the word world. And then underneath that you have the globe with very blue, prominent blue, representing the oceans and the seas. And you have all the countries in there, it looks like, but maybe more so North and South America and maybe part of Europe. Looks like the rest of the world is cut off, but the way the belt is designed, there's only so much space you can, or only so many things you can put on there. Covering South America, because most WWE champions or WWF champions back then are going to come from North America anyway. From Bret down to Austin, you're going to have just basically North Americans and primarily just guys from the U.S. But anyway, the eagle head. And then the eagle head spreads and it's spread eagle wings. And then its legs are also spread eagle. This all sounds so weird. And then the tail feathers underneath, like I guess the body of the eagle. And then underneath that is another black standard banner with the words wrestling champion. Once again, all caps, no undercase, lowercase. And then on the sides of the belt, before you get to the side plates, on the edges of the circle, I guess, if a circle had edges, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like imprints of guys wrestling, various wrestling holds. So once again, like I said, it's got kind of that old school look of using wrestler moves to just incorporate, like, hey, this is wrestling. It's more really entertainment, but they do definitely utilize wrestling moves. You can say it's fake all day if you want to, but if I put you somewhere and do some of these moves to you, you're going to be in pain. And I may not do them as hard, but you're going to be in pain and you're going to be like, man, I'm sore as shit. Guaranteed. This is definitely a strong number 2. Like I said, a lot of people love this belt because it represents probably like the golden age of the current state of wrestling. You're not going to go all the way back to Gorgeous George and Buddy Rogers and all those guys, the Fabulous Kangaroos. You're not going to go back that far because you weren't alive for that. So most of you, I'm sure. And so with this is the Hogan. Flair had this as well. Hint, hint. Flair had this, and a lot of people had this belt. Sid Vicious had it. Diesel had it. I don't know if Razor Ramon was ever world champion in WWE. Vince McMahon, I'm sure, had this because he was world champion. So a lot of guys had this championship belt. And it just represents a great time in pro wrestling for people, even with the doldrums of the 94s and 95s until the NWO took over and Rock and Austin took over and Mankind. And, you had some doldrums for a while, but they got through it. But this is still just like a representative of that time. And speaking of that time, it is time for number one, the number one world championship title belt. I'd like to just sit here and say, first of all, how much I appreciate this championship belt, because the way that it looks is so distinct from every other belt I've ever seen in my entire life. When I associate a name with this belt, I've already mentioned that name in this podcast. I just did it a few minutes ago, and I'll say it again. When I think about this belt, I think of one name. It's Ric Flair. There are other names, of course, who had this belt, from Dusty Rhodes to Sting. Matter of fact, I think he was the last one to hold it in WCW and NWA after Crockett, didn't have it anymore and Ted Turner took over. Sting won it July 7th, 1990. I'll never forget that date. And then they eventually brought it back for WWE, and you had guys like Triple H win it, and John Cena and Randy Orton, Daniel Bryan, I almost said Bryan Danielson, etc. So a lot of people have won this championship belt as well, but when I really think of the one person who embodies this championship belt, it's definitely Ric Flair. And the one thing that's really different about this is you don't see words written on banners except for Ric Flair's name on the bottom. Other than that, this whole thing is gold and kind of silverish on some backgrounds to show, once again, we have the wrestlers wrestling, those images. We have that. But other than that, this whole thing is gold. And I think this is actually an artist rendition of it. But even still, this is exactly what it is. But let me just go ahead and kind of break down what's going on in this belt. There's a lot going on here. But it's just they call it the big gold belt. It's probably, in my opinion, it's the most beautiful belt I've ever seen as far as professional wrestling. So it's kind of an oblong, I don't want to say oblong, it's not the right word. It's a circular shape with some curvatures to it toward the top and toward the sides, and then toward the bottom with kind of a pointy bottom a little bit. You got the words all in caps, World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion. The top, world is on top, and then heavyweight underneath that, centered, and then wrestling champion centered again underneath that. And then underneath that, you have a crown, and then underneath that, you have all the continents again, minus Australia, and looks like most of Europe, all of Asia, and Antarctica as well, because facts, that's why. You have 4 images, or actually, let's talk about just the main part of the belt. 2 images of guys wrestling. Looks like some kind of suplex or leg takedown. Can't really tell. But then the rest of this belt, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 little red ruby looking dots that I'm sure are kind of holding the belt in place. So it's kind of a neat little thing there. But the rest of this belt has just I don't know if you've ever seen a fern. You guys know what a fern looks like? You see the leaves kind of curling up and curling back into itself. That's kind of what this is going on. They have a bunch of those type of designs kind of swirling and kind of curving around the rest of the championship belt. It really just looks like a fern or somebody with curly hair. It's just a really neat look. Even in the center of the crown, right above the planet and the countries, or continents, you have a red ruby looking thing holding that there. You have 4 diamond things on the bottom of the crown. It's just such a distinct, very, very cool look. And the nameplate is the first time I ever saw a wrestler's name on a championship belt. It was not the last time, but it was definitely the first time. Now, granted, I was born in 1977. Didn't really start watching wrestling until 85, 86. It was before WrestleMania 3. Because I remember seeing Savage beat the shit out of Ricky Steamboat with that ring bell. and thinking that shit was for real and he was really going to die. But I remember seeing all that and seeing it live or whatever, and just was like, oh my God, he's really going to die. So there was no name belt or name plates on WWF championship belts. It was all about the company, which might be why it's still around today. That was almost 40 years ago, and we're still talking about WWE. We're not talking about WCW or NWA existing still. There's no more AWA, no more World Class Championship. There's no more ECW. Like, there's no more Smoky Mountain. Like, I'm going on and on and on. The companies who are still around that have been around for 10 years or more: Ring of Honor, Impact, and out of the country, we got All Japan Pro Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling and WWE, and that's all I know of. That's it. Other ones have been around, maybe much, much smaller promotions, and that's fine. I'm not trying to diss, just I don't know them. But those are like the 5 big ones across the globe that people really, really know about: All Japan, New Japan, WWE, Ring of Honor, and the other one I said that I can't remember. Oh, TNA Impact, which, yeah, they've gone through their name change like 3 or 4 times. And they've been around since, I think, 01, 02, 03, somewhere there after WCW closed down. That's where all the rejects went. That's where Luger went. And Savage went back there. And Sting went over there, even though Sting's not a reject. But, yeah, he was still in the prime of his life. God, he was great. Anyway, those are my top 5 championship belts. And if I really kind of I'll do an honorable mention real quick. Let me just go ahead and look up the AWA World Championship, because that belt does not get enough credit for how it looks. It looks very similar to the WCW NWA World Championship, and kind of in its own right, like in terms of the shape. So the one I'm looking at, it's got American flag side plates, which isn't really the stand-up part of it, but just like the simple, we got the red rubies thing again holding the belt together, and you got the AWA logo separated by, looks like very designer-ish, small lowercase t's or sideways X's. The words World Heavyweight centered, and then underneath that, Wrestling Champion. And then you just got like a silver background to the entire belt, and some gold stuff, kind of just little designy looking. It's nice. And I think there's a wrestling move once again at the bottom of the belt. There's a wrestling move in a gold circular kind of metal medallion looking thing. But there's also another belt that AWA had some years back. I think this was the one I just described. I think was the second one, but the one that existed before that was another variation. Yeah, this is definitely the older one, I could tell. This looks very 60s and 70s, but there's a crown at the top. Like, there's a very common theme here: crowns, wrestling moves, floral type designs within it, all caps. It's just red rubies and diamonds and gold and silver. Like, it was almost like, okay, if you're going to make a belt, you got to include all these things. Like, that's literally kind of how this thing looks. But yeah, so you got your red, white, and blue stripes into almost like a shield type shape, and the side plates, and above that are the letters AWA with the side T's on the lowercase T's on the side. Then above that is an eagle, once again, because that's the national bird of America. And then on the actual belt itself in the middle, you have a crown, and then you have a shield looking thing again with like a floral design, it looks like, but there's also a globe in that. And then underneath that, you have a plate in the middle that says World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion on 4 different levels. And then you have a floral type extension underneath that, kind of like a reef. Not a wreath. I don't even know what the hell it is. Not a reef. But anyway, and then you have wrestlers wrestling at the bottom in this kind of circular medallion metal thing. And then when I say metal, I don't mean METAL, MEDAL. You guys should just definitely Google these belts. These belts are gorgeous. These belts are absolutely gorgeous. I know there's guys out there, guys and gals, probably mostly guys, because wrestling is really more of a guy thing. But I know that they like to buy versions of these, replicas basically, and have them on display. And I know I got a buddy of mine who has masks that are on display at his house. And that's cool. That's the thing you collect. I collect digital media. I love music. I love getting movies and TV shows that I will never be able to watch on TV regularly ever again, like Different Strokes. Rewatched some episodes from that the other day because that was fun for me. So people have their thing that they like, want to collect. This is something that people collect. I give them props. These things are not cheap at all. And if this is what you collect, I give you props for that because it is not cheap to do so. And that means you really love it. And I'm a strong believer in do what you love what you do. As long as no one's getting hurt, no one can sit there and tell you what you're doing is wrong. If they do tell you that it's wrong, then F them. Like it's not their business. This is your business. It's your life. And you enjoy yourself. And that's my little spiel on all of that. Once again, thanks for joining me here as we talk about wrestling for 30 days straight. We got Extreme Rules coming up on Sunday. I'm probably going to watch it. I know I'm going to watch it, actually. I'm going to be out of town for a few days, and I'm going to go watch that. And I'm going to really, really enjoy myself. But I'll keep making these even while I'm on vacation because I enjoy doing these for 35, 40 minutes, whatever, uploading them on YouTube and letting them sit there at 6 a.m. So you guys have your fun. I have my fun. Everyone smile. KJ from OC, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and I am